What if the most powerful message a man could ever send was absolute silence? Not weakness, not retreat, just complete disappearance. No words, no explanations, no reactions. Just the haunting, cold, unbreakable silence of a man who finally decided she no longer deserves access to him. You think she left you? Maybe. But what breaks her isn't that you lost. It's that you didn't chase her. You didn't scream. You didn't try to prove your worth. You vanished. And that's the move she never expected. She wanted a response. She wanted your energy. She wanted chaos. But what if you robbed her of all of it and gave her nothing? That nothing. It hurts more than words ever could. And if you're tired of being the one who always begs, always reaches out, always gets played, then this video was made for you. Because silence, real silence, is your final weapon. And today, you're going to learn how to use it like a man who knows his value. Comment below. She lost access. If you value content like this, support this channel. It helps these truths reach every man who's been manipulated, discarded, lied to, and left broken. Support means more truth, more men reclaiming their lives. Let's make this message reach thousands. Number 1. She wanted you to react. She wanted to see your name light up her phone, not because she misses you, but because she needs to know she still owns a piece of you, a piece of your emotional attention, a piece of your ego, a piece of your peace. And the very first thing you need to do when a woman walks away is not ask why, not plead for her to explain, not argue, not cry, not write an essay in her inbox, but stop completely and entirely and remove your energy from her world like she never existed, not out of hate, not out of spite, but because a man who values himself does not donate his power to someone who discarded it. And if you can understand that the real battlefield is not what she did, but what you do next, then you've already started to reclaim your masculinity. And here's exactly how you do it. First, delete her number from your phone, not for theatrics, but because discipline starts with removing the temptation to regress. And if you think, but what if she texts me? You already lost the game because you are still building your life around her hypothetical actions and not your actual healing. And second, stop watching her stories, liking her posts, or even caring what she's doing, because every time you check, you are telling your mind that her validation is still your addiction, and that is not just psychological weakness. It is spiritual bankruptcy. And if you want your power back, then understand that your eyes and your attention are currency, and you should never spend it on someone who left you like an option in a vending machine. And third, don't call your friends to complain or dissect every word she said. That's just emotional gossip disguised as processing, and it doesn't make you wiser. It makes you dependent on external validation to justify your pain. When the truth is, your pain doesn't need to be justified. It needs to be transformed, and that transformation begins when you sit alone in the silence and let the heartbreak become a teacher instead of a trauma. And the fourth thing you must do is get brutally honest with yourself about who she really was, not who you hoped she'd be, not the fantasy version you built in your head to cope, but the real woman. Did she honor you, respect you, commit to you? And if the answer is no, then stop fantasizing about her return, because you're just grieving a version of her that never existed, and holding on to illusions is the fastest way to delay your evolution. And now here's the mindset shift. Stop seeing silence as doing nothing, and start seeing it as doing everything, because silence isn't passive. Silence is presence. It's the kind of presence that builds your mind back, rebuilds your identity, regrounds your values, and reminds your soul that your worth was never up for debate. Only your memory of it was. And if you want to maximize this silence, start filling it with structure. Wake up and write down exactly what kind of man you want to be in 5 years. and then reverse engineer what habits that man lives by and start living them today. Because while she's busy wondering why you vanished, you should be building the version of yourself that doesn't even recognize the man who used to beg for her attention. And this is where Stoicism enters the scene. Stoicism is not emotionless. Stoicism is the art of choosing which emotions deserve the keys to your kingdom, and you do that by asking one simple question. Does reacting to her give me peace, or does it cost me peace? And if it costs you peace, then silence isn't avoidance, it's alignment. And from this point on, every time you want to text her, every time you want to see if she watched your story, I want you to do one thing. Grab your journal or your phone's notepad and write down 3 goals that matter more than her attention. And if you can't think of 3, then her leaving wasn't the real loss. Your direction was, and now you have a chance to reclaim it. And yes, this will hurt. Yes, your body will crave the dopamine of her affection. Yes, you'll want to believe that if you just say the right words, she'll come back and everything will go back to how it was. But let me make this as clear as possible. The second you broke your silence, you trained her that walking away is the path to your energy. And she'll repeat that cycle until the only thing you know how to do is beg for love that should have been freely given. And here's what's worse. She will never respect you for breaking your silence, even if she responds, even if she seems sweet, even if she says she misses you, because deep down, she knows you couldn't hold the line. And women do not trust men. They can emotionally destabilize. So if you want her to feel your presence in a way she's never felt before, do not send her flowers. Do not send her messages. Send her your absence, and send it like it's a sacred gift wrapped in finality. Because real masculinity is not about being cold. It's about being clear. Clear that you will not be a playground for her confusion. Clear that you are not entertainment while she explores her options. And clear that your attention is a privilege, and she lost it the moment she acted like it was permanent. And now, when the silence stretches into weeks and she starts testing you with breadcrumbs, I need you to understand that this is not a sign of love. It's a test of power. She wants to know if she can still control you, and the answer must always be no, not through anger, not through blocked rage, but through effortless indifference. The kind of indifference that only comes from a man who has faced his demons and decided that his peace is more valuable than his pride. And finally, understand this. If you keep breaking silence to reconnect with someone who broke your heart, you are not just wasting time. You are rewiring your nervous system to believe that pain equals love. And that is a cycle that will keep you in emotional slavery for the rest of your life unless you kill it now. And the way you kill it is simple. One day at a time, you choose not to react, you choose not to chase, you choose not to crack under the weight of emotional addiction, and instead, you choose the cold, raw, powerful, liberating path of silence. Not because you hate her, but because you finally love yourself more than her attention. And when you do that, when you hold the line, something amazing happens. She starts to feel what you used to feel, confused, anxious, powerless, and by then, you won't even care. Not because you're numb, but because you're free. Number 2, silence kills her control. Silence is not the absence of action. It is the most calculated move a man can make when faced with emotional chaos. And if you think going silent means doing nothing, then you haven't yet understood that control isn't about loudness, dominance, or confrontation. It's about the ability to dictate the terms of your peace. And when a woman walks away, what she expects is not silence, but response. Because response is confirmation that she still has access to your energy. And this is why silence kills her control, because it cuts off her emotional supply and forces her to sit with herself. And that's a place most women never want to go when they know they've just discarded a man who was emotionally invested, because in her mind, the emotional dynamic was hers to manipulate. She could walk away, pull back, flirt with others, entertain options, and still keep you emotionally present, available, and craving her validation. But when you go silent, truly silent, and I mean no posts, no views, no reactions, no "I hope you're okay" texts, no passive social clues, no response to her bait, you remove her audience. And the moment a woman loses the man who fed her emotional ego, the moment she can no longer watch you suffer in real time, that's when her sense of control begins to collapse. Because now she's no longer the center of your attention. And women are deeply sensitive to shifts in attention. They feel it like gravity. They sense it in the energy. And the void your silence creates becomes louder than any argument or emotional display. So what must you do to ensure that your silence dismantles her illusion of control instead of just becoming background noise? First, you must commit to total invisibility. Not partial, not "I'll check her story now and then," not "maybe I'll still post to show her what she's missing." No. Total, surgical, clinical invisibility, because the second you break that silence even a little, you hand her a thread to pull. And trust me, she will pull it. Not to rebuild love, but to test if she can still make you jump. And your job is to deny her that test, to starve her of your presence. Because when she opens her DMs and doesn't see you, when she posts that seductive reel and your name isn't in the views, when her friends ask, "What happened to him?" and she has no answer, that's when the regret starts to simmer. And regret is only born in silence, not conversation. And here's what most men get wrong. They think their power is in words, in speeches, in proving their point. But no man has ever earned a woman's respect by begging her to understand. You earn respect by not needing her to understand, by being so centered in your own peace that her opinion no longer dictates your reality, and that's Stoicism at its core. Not numbness, not cold-heartedness, but the discipline to detach your identity from her approval, and that's what you must train for. Because the silence will not just haunt her, it will test you. It will whisper lies in your ear, lies like she'll forget you, or she never cared, or maybe if you just reach out once. And you must learn to sit with those lies and not move. Because the truth is, your value is not determined by whether she comes back. It's determined by whether you can stand still in the fire and refuse to be baited. And that's how you kill her control, not by punishing her, but by protecting your boundaries. And boundaries are only real when they are enforced in the face of temptation. So what do you do when she finally tests your silence? When she sends the "I miss us" text or posts that cryptic story you know is aimed at you? You do nothing, because silence is not just what you do. It's who you become. It's the new language of your self-respect. And every time you withhold your attention, you reinforce that language until it becomes your native tongue. And don't just sit in silence, weaponize it. Use that space to level up. Go to the gym not to post about it, but to reclaim your body. Read not to show off quotes, but to sharpen your mind. Build your money, your skills, your inner world, until the man she once knew becomes a ghost she can no longer reach. And if she ever circles back, not with remorse, but with curiosity, let her see a man who has evolved so far beyond her validation that even if she begged, he no longer recognizes the version of himself who once needed her approval. And remember, women are emotional creatures. They are not wired to handle silence. They crave resolution. They want answers. They want narrative closure. And your silence denies all of that. Not to torture, but to teach. To teach her that the game ends when the player walks off the field, not when she says it does. And here's the real power. When you choose silence, you are not just choosing absence. You are choosing clarity. Clarity that your energy is no longer for sale. And the longer you remain silent, the more the control slips from her fingers. And if she comes back, it's no longer because you chased, but because you stopped being accessible. And in that moment, You must ask yourself, is her return about love or about regaining control? And the answer to that question will define your future. Because if you break silence to go back to a cycle of emotional manipulation, you didn't win, you delayed the pain. But if you maintain silence even when she finally notices, even when it burns, then you've turned the tables and you are now in control, not of her, but of yourself. And that, more than any tactic or strategy, is what makes a man untouchable. Number 3, she'll try to pull you back. She will try to pull you back, not because she has changed, not because she has realized your worth, but because your silence created a void she cannot control. Control is the core of emotional power in any relationship, especially when the woman is used to being the center of your world. So when that spotlight vanishes, when she no longer sees herself reflected in your actions, your attention, your responses, it becomes unbearable to her, not out of love, but out of ego. And this is the moment most men fail. This is the test you weren't prepared for, because silence is not the final move. It's the opening strategy. And when she returns with breadcrumbs, those vague messages, the check-in texts, the old photo she tags you in, or that passive story with a sad quote about loss, you must see it for what it is. A trap to lure you back into orbit. A trap designed to see if you still care, if you still chase, if your silence was real or just a performance, and your response, or lack of it, determines whether she respects you or recaptures you. So what exactly should you do when she tries to pull you back? You do nothing, absolutely nothing, because when she reaches out after breaking your heart, it is not your job to reopen doors she chose to close. It is not your role to provide emotional comfort to someone who walked away from your love. And if you even slightly engage, you validate her behavior. You teach her that she can discard you and still get your energy on demand. And what you need to understand is that women do not respect a man they can emotionally reset. Meaning, if she knows she can push you away, flirt with others, post thirst traps, explore other options, and then circle back with a soft message and re-enter your life like nothing happened, then you are no longer a man in her eyes. You are a doormat, and that's not just emotionally dangerous, that's psychologically destabilizing for you, because your subconscious begins to associate pain with reward, abandonment with connection, and love with chaos. And this rewires your nervous system to seek toxic patterns, and you start believing that chasing someone who hurt you is normal, but it's not. It's self-betrayal. And the only way to stop that cycle is to remain absolutely indifferent when she resurfaces. Not angry, not passive-aggressive, not sarcastic, indifferent, because true Stoicism is not about pretending you don't feel. It's about being unmoved by things that don't serve your higher purpose, and what serves you is clarity, peace, and growth, not circular conversations with someone who left when it mattered. So what does that look like in practice? It means you don't answer her text, not even with a "hope you're well." You don't view her story, even if curiosity burns in your gut. You don't post a cryptic status aimed at her, because all of those are indirect admissions that you're still emotionally tethered, and she'll see right through them. And the moment she sees that, she knows she still owns you. And here's where the real battle begins. She might escalate, send something more direct, something vulnerable like "I miss you," or "I just wanted to say hi," or "Do you hate me now?" And every fiber of your being will want to respond, to explain, to show you're not bitter. But that urge is not love, it's addiction. And the cure for addiction is abstinence. So you resist, not to punish her, but to protect yourself, because every message you don't send, every call you don't return, every story you don't watch is a brick in the fortress of your self-respect. And over time, that fortress becomes your new identity. The man who is no longer emotionally available to people who discarded him like an option. And that kind of man is rare, That kind of man becomes magnetic because he cannot be manipulated, and women sense that. And they are drawn to that, not because they want to be ignored, but because they crave stability. They respect boundaries, even if they pretend they don't. And if you hold your silence, if you hold your ground, her tactics will evolve. She might try the guilt angle, remind you of memories, say things like, "You meant so much to me," or "I just wanted closure," but don't fall for it, because closure is a self-responsibility, and if she wanted closure, she would have stayed when it mattered. And the fact that she wants to reopen old wounds without rebuilding real connection means she's not here for healing. She's here for control, to know that the door is still open. And the longer you hold the line, the more desperate the attempts will become. She might send selfies, music links, "This reminded me of you" messages, and every time you resist, every time you do not flinch, you are reclaiming the parts of you that were lost in that relationship. You are rewiring your identity around strength, around clarity, and you are showing yourself that love is not something to beg for, it's something to embody. And when she finally realizes that her tactics no longer work, she will do one of two things. She will either disappear completely, retreating into her own confusion, and likely trying the same tactics on the next man, or she will finally see you for what you are, not the boy who begged, but the man who built. And if that realization leads to her returning with sincerity, accountability, and action, then you have a decision to make. But that decision must be made from power, not loneliness, from strength, not nostalgia. And even then, the burden is not yours to rebuild, it is hers to carry. And if she cannot carry it, you walk, again in silence, and this time forever. Because some doors are not meant to be reopened, some people are not meant to be re-invited, and some lessons are too sacred to be unlearned. So when she tries to pull you back, remember this: if you answer, you lose the frame. You lose the control, and you reset the power dynamic back to her terms. But if you stay silent, if you hold the line, you don't just maintain your power. You ascend. You become the man who does not bend, does not break, and does not return to places that broke him. And that kind of man doesn't chase closure, because he is the closure. Number 4. Regret hits when you vanish. Regret doesn't come when you argue, explain, or beg. Regret hits her when she realizes that the emotional safety net she took for granted has vanished without a sound. When she opens her phone and there's no unread message from you, no reaction to her story, no comments, no double taps, no breadcrumbs, just stillness. Pure, terrifying, undeniable stillness. And in that stillness, she is forced to confront the echo of her decisions, because what she thought would be temporary, your silence, becomes permanent, and permanence is something she never calculated for, because most men crack, most men eventually say something, send something, do something to break the void. But when you vanish with discipline, with dignity, without announcement or drama, just disappearance, you shift the entire emotional equation. And that shift is what opens the door to regret. Not because she necessarily wants to love you again, but because she realizes she no longer has access to your energy, your kindness, your support, your emotional investment. And for many women, that loss doesn't register immediately. It builds over time, subtly, like background noise that becomes unbearable when the world goes quiet. And here's what you need to understand. When you were emotionally available, when you were present, responding, reactive, expressive, you gave her signals that she mattered, that her presence had power over your emotions. But when you cut that off, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, you remove the control mechanism she was used to pulling, and the longer you stay gone, the more the silence compounds. It doesn't fade, it grows, it magnifies. It becomes this invisible wall between who you were and who you've become. And every attempt she makes to get a reaction and fails adds another layer to that wall, until eventually she realizes she can't reach you anymore. Not because you blocked her, not because you're hiding, but because you no longer live in the same emotional frequency, and at that moment, she starts to feel what you once felt. Doubt, the insecurity, the longing. But this time, it's hers. And it hits harder because it's unexpected, because you didn't beg, you didn't try to win her back, you didn't collapse into neediness. You elevated in silence. And that silence now speaks louder than any words you could have said, but it only works if you truly vanish. Not half-hearted silence, not silence laced with hope, but complete emotional disengagement. And to make that happen, you must do something most men fear. You must remove every avenue that ties your peace to her presence, which means no checking her updates, no watching her feed through a fake account, no talking to mutual friends about what she's doing, no holding on to photos or gifts just in case. You must treat the silence as sacred, as the new language of your self-worth, and use every day of that silence to rebuild the man she never fully appreciated. Not for her, but for you. And that means creating a routine that is so brutally structured that there's no emotional bandwidth left to reminisce or regress. Wake up early. Journal your thoughts before they consume you. Hit the gym even when you feel dead inside. Create systems in your business or job that force growth. Surround yourself with men who challenge you, not comfort you, and dive into books, projects, and passions you abandoned while chasing her validation. Because when she feels your absence, and you're simultaneously building your empire, that contrast hits her twice. She doesn't just miss you, she misses the version of herself that mattered to you, and now that version no longer has access. And this is the part that stings the most for her, knowing that you're no longer emotionally reachable, that someone else might now be receiving the version of you that she didn't value. And this is not about making her jealous. It's about understanding the psychological weight of true absence. And true absence doesn't come from pretending not to care. It comes from having evolved so far past her emotional reach that even if she tried to come back, she would need to climb to meet you. And the climb must be steep, because if you let her return easily, you reset the cycle and undo all your progress. So when regret hits her, and she sends that message, or reaches out through mutual friends, or posts something aimed at you, your job is to do nothing, to remain immovable, because every act of immobility is a reminder that you no longer dance to her rhythm, and the more you resist responding, the more her regret deepens, because what she regrets is not just losing you, it's losing access to the man who once saw her as irreplaceable. And the only way that regret becomes transformation is if you make it clear through silence that access is earned, not gifted, and that's how you control the narrative, not by speaking, but by disappearing so completely that your absence becomes a mirror she cannot escape. And in that mirror, she sees the choices she made, the love she dismissed, the peace she disrupted, and the man she underestimated. And if she comes back, it won't be with the same power she once had, because she'll know the dynamic has shifted. And if she doesn't come back, then you've already won, because you've built a life where her absence is no longer a loss, but a lesson. And that lesson is this: when you vanish, not to punish, but to protect your peace, you don't lose anything, you gain everything. Your time, your energy, your direction, and most importantly, your self-respect. She thought silence was weakness. She thought you'd wait. She thought you'd break. But you did the one thing she never prepared for. You vanished, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in unshakable, quiet strength. You didn't speak to hurt her. You stopped speaking to heal yourself. And now she sits in the space your absence created, searching for a version of you she can no longer reach. That's not revenge. That's respect for yourself. Comment below, she lost access. Say it like a man who means it. If this message stirred something in your soul, If you finally see the silence not as emptiness, but as power, then support this channel. Subscribe. Share this with a man who needs to hear it. Every click, every comment, every like brings this message to someone still stuck, still chasing, still breaking under the weight of silence he hasn't mastered yet. By supporting this channel, you help build a brotherhood of men who rise through discipline, heal through self-control, and never beg for love again.